I'm 97 years old, and I need you to hear this like your life depends on it. Because one day, it will. When people ask me what my biggest regret is, they expect something dramatic. A war, a scandal, a crime, a betrayal. But my biggest regret is smaller than that. It fits inside a single moment. A moment where I almost chose love and then told myself, I'll do it later. That word, later, is a thief. It doesn't pull a gun on you. It smiles, it waits, it pats you on the back and says, you have time. And then it steals your whole life while you're busy. So let me tell you what I learned the hard way. It took me 70 years to understand it. And I'm telling you now, you might notice my hands and body shake a little. The doctors call it essential tremor. It doesn't hurt. It just reminds me how much time has passed. So you won't be late like I was. Because if you're watching this, you still have something I no longer have. You have today. When I was young, I thought life was a staircase, step by step. First you chase money, then you build a name, then you earn respect, then you slow down, then you enjoy the people you love. That's how it was supposed to go. I told myself, right now I'm building, later I'll live. I said it with confidence, like I was being responsible. But what I didn't know was this. There is no later waiting for you. There is only now. And whatever you keep pushing away. I didn't learn that at 27. I didn't learn it at 40. I didn't learn it at 60. I learned it at 91. And by then, the price had already been paid. The first time later robbed me, I was 19 when I met the love of my life. Her name was Evelyn. She was the kind of beautiful that didn't ask for attention. People gave it to her without realizing. She worked at a small diner, and she would hum under her breath while she poured coffee, not for show, just because she had music in her bones. The first time she spoke to me, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You look like you're carrying something heavy." I laughed because I didn't know how to answer. I was just a kid trying to act like a man. But she was right. Even then, I was already carrying the weight of proving myself. Back then, I didn't have much. No family wealth, no connections, just hunger. The kind of hunger that makes you say yes to every opportunity and no to everyone you love. Evelyn didn't fall in love with my ambition. She fell in love with the part of me that I kept trying to ignore, the part that could soften. She would say things like, "Don't work so hard that you forget you're alive." And I would smile, kiss her forehead, and say the most dangerous sentence a person can say, "I know, I'll slow down soon." Soon, later, after this next thing. Do you see the pattern? At 26, I got a job opportunity that could change everything. Better pay, better future, better title. The kind of job that makes your chest puff out when you tell people your name. That same week, Evelyn told me she was pregnant. I remember the way her hands shook when she placed them on my face. She was smiling, but her eyes were watering. "We're going to be parents," she whispered. And right there, for a second, time stopped. That was my moment. That was the moment to hold her and say, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." But instead, I did the thing I had been trained to do. I calculated. My mind started spinning with numbers, plans, deadlines. I said, "That's amazing. That's wonderful. Just give me a second." And I reached for my coat because I was late for a meeting. Evelyn didn't cry. That's what still haunts me. She didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't demand anything. She just nodded slowly, like she understood. And that was the saddest part. She understood who I was becoming. I kissed her quickly, promised we'd celebrate later, and left. Later. I didn't know it that day, but I had just taught the woman I loved that my attention had a price tag, that if something else looked important, she would have to wait. And the terrible truth is, she did wait for years. Most people think a life falls apart with one explosion, but it usually doesn't. It falls apart like a roof leaking. Drop by drop. You don't panic at first. You just put a bucket under it and you tell yourself you'll fix it later. But the water keeps coming, and one day you look up and realize the ceiling is caving in. That's how my marriage began to change. Not with cheating, not with violence, not with some huge scandal. It changed because I kept offering Evelyn my leftovers. Leftover time, leftover energy, leftover patience. And I kept calling it love. I would come home tired, sit down, and ask about her day while my eyes were on paperwork. I would listen, but not really hear. Our child would run to me, arms open, face bright, yelling, "Daddy!" And I would say, "Not right now, buddy. Let me finish this. Not right now. Later." You don't realize how heavy those words are until it's too late to take them back. When I was 41, I came home late again. The house was quiet, too quiet. No laughter, no movement. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of a clock that suddenly sounded like a countdown. Evelyn was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. She didn't look angry. She looked empty. And emptiness is far scarier than anger. She slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a photograph. It was of my son at a school event. He was standing on a stage holding a certificate, and next to him was an empty chair. My empty chair. My name wasn't on the paper, but my absence was. Evelyn said very softly, "He looked for you the whole time." I swallowed hard. I started to explain, to defend, to justify, but she held up her hand. And what she said next, I can still hear it like it happened yesterday. "I'm not mad," she whispered. "I'm just scared." "Scared of what?" I asked. She looked down, then back up. "I'm scared we're going to wake up one day and realize we missed our whole life." That sentence hit me like a car crash, because she wasn't being poetic. She was being honest, and I wanted to fix it right then. I wanted to rewind everything, but instead of changing, I did what I always did. I promised. I said, you're right. I'm going to change. I'll do better." And she nodded, like she'd heard it before, because she had. Evelyn stayed. She tried. We raised our child. Life kept moving, and I kept working, because I still believed the lie. I'm doing this for them. But here's what nobody tells you. You can build a house for the people you love and still leave them homeless inside it. Years passed, and Evelyn started to go quiet in a different way. Less laughing, less humming, less her. And I told myself we'd reconnect later. Then one morning when I was 58, I woke up and heard a sound from the bathroom. A small sound, like something dropping. I found her on the floor. Her face was pale. Her lips were trembling. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of me, fear of leaving. We rushed to the hospital. Doctors used big words. They spoke in careful tones. And in the middle of it, Evelyn squeezed my hand and whispered something that made my whole chest burn. She said, "Please, don't wait until I'm gone to finally be here." I couldn't answer, because I realized something terrifying. I didn't know how to be present. I knew how to provide. I knew how to perform. I knew how to chase, but I didn't know how to simply stay. Evelyn recovered enough to come home, and I tried. I really tried. I took a few days off. I brought flowers. I sat with her longer. But the truth, I treated presence like a project, like a chore I could finish, and then go back to real life. Because even then, I still believed time was guaranteed, that there would always be another weekend, another anniversary, another conversation, until the day there wasn't. At 62, I came home and she wasn't in the living room. She wasn't in the kitchen. I walked down the hallway, calling her name. No answer. Then I saw her bedroom door slightly open, and I felt it. That quiet feeling you can't explain, but your body understands. I pushed the door open, and Evelyn was lying there, still, like she was asleep. But the room had a kind of silence that didn't belong to sleep. My knees hit the floor before my mind could catch up. I remember grabbing her hand. It was warm, just barely. I said, "Evelyn, hey, I'm here." And I swear to you, this is the cruelest part. I meant it. I was finally there, fully there. But the moment didn't clap for me. The moment didn't congratulate me. The moment didn't care that I finally learned the lesson. Because time doesn't reward you for understanding late. The most dangerous thing in the world isn't failure. It's postponing love. Because if you keep telling yourself later, one day, later won't show up. So, Evelyn was gone. And I was standing there in a room that suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too cold. For the first time in my life, there was no meeting to rush to, no deadline to impress, no phone call to hide behind, just me, and the echo of all the times I said, later. That night, I didn't sleep. People think grief is crying. But grief is also sitting in silence, staring at a wall, realizing nobody is coming into the room again. The house sounded different without her. Even the floors creaked like strangers. I sat in the living room with the lamp on, holding her sweater in my hands like it could bring her back. And I started hearing her voice in my head. Not the big conversations, not the serious talks, the small ones. The ones that don't feel important until they're gone. Did you eat today? Don't forget your jacket. I saved you some food. Come sit with me. And I realized something that made me nauseous. I didn't lose Evelyn in one day. I lost her slowly, over years, while she was still alive. That's what broke me. Because death didn't steal her first. My distractions did. A few days after the funeral, my son came over. He was a grown man by then. He stood in the doorway for a long time like he didn't know where to put his pain. We hugged. It was one of those hugs where two men hold each other too tightly because words can't do the job. Then he said, "Dad, Mom left something for you." He walked into the bedroom and pulled out a dusty cardboard box from the top shelf of the closet. I didn't even know it was there. He placed it in front of me and left the room. And I swear I almost didn't open it. Because some part of me was scared. Not of what I'd find, but of what I already knew. I lifted the lid. Inside was a stack of letters, all addressed to me, in Evelyn's handwriting. At the top was a note, "For when you finally slow down." My chest tightened, because that meant she knew. She knew I wouldn't understand while she was alive, and she was right. I opened the first letter. It started like this. "My love, I don't think you realize how much you're missing." I swallowed hard. I kept reading. "I don't blame you for wanting a better life, but somewhere along the way, you stopped living it with us." My eyes blurred. The letters weren't angry. They were tender, heartbroken, but tender. That's what made them dangerous. Then I hit a sentence that made my hands start shaking. "You keep saying you're doing it for us, but we would trade the money for you in a heartbeat." I didn't cry. I collapsed. At 62 years old, I collapsed onto the floor like a child. Because in that moment, I understood something people don't understand until life punches them in the mouth. The people who truly love you don't want your success if it costs them your presence. They don't want gifts if they can't have you. They don't want promises. They want time. Let me say something that might scare you, but it will save you. Life is not long. It only feels long. When you're young, when you're 20, a year is forever. When you're 30, a decade feels far away. But when you're my age, years collapse like paper. I remember being 35 like it was last Tuesday. I remember holding my baby boy like he's still small. I remember Evelyn's laugh like it's still ringing in the kitchen. And it hits you. Life isn't lived in years. Life is lived in moments. And the tragedy is, most people aren't present for their own moments. That's what took me 70 years to understand. Success is not the goal. Being there is the goal, because you can lose your whole life while trying to build it. Years passed after Evelyn's death. My son started a family. The world changed. I slowed down, but not because I wanted to, because life forced me. And then, when I was 91, something happened that brought everything back. I had a health scare, just a warning shot. The kind of warning that makes you sit up straight in bed at 3 a.m. and realize you're not invincible. I recovered, but my mind didn't. Because I couldn't stop thinking about something Evelyn used to say. I'm scared we'll wake up one day and realize we missed our whole life. Now I was waking up, and she was right. So I started doing something strange. I started visiting places from my past, the diner where we met, the park where I proposed, the hospital where our son was born. And every time I stood there, I saw the invisible ghosts of my younger self. Young me, hungry, ambitious, so serious, so convinced, so blind. Then one day, I stood by that old diner, and I started talking out loud like a fool. I said, "Why were you rushing so much?" And in my head, young me answered, "Because I didn't want to fail." And that's when it hit me. The fear that drove my whole life wasn't ambition. It was fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being seen as small. Fear of being poor again. Fear of being laughed at. And that fear made me postpone love. Let me tell you the cost of being late. Being late doesn't always cost you money. Sometimes it costs you something far worse. It costs you the last time you hear "I love you" in their normal voice. The last time your parent calls you. The last time your child reaches for your hand. The last time your partner asks you to sit with them. The last invitation you ignore because you're busy. The last laugh you don't participate in because you're tired, and you don't know it's the last time. That's the trap. Because if life warned you, we'd all behave differently. But it doesn't. It just ends things quietly. And suddenly, the last time becomes the last time forever. If I could go back, just for one day, not to fix everything, but to understand earlier, I would tell 27-year-old me this: your life is not measured by what you achieve. It's measured by what you don't postpone. Because the most sacred moments are rarely scheduled. They show up like whispers, a spouse asking you to sit with them, a friend calling at midnight, your mom wanting to talk, your child asking you to play, and you're thinking, not now. But the truth is, not now becomes not ever. One evening, years later, my son visited me. We sat on the porch. The air was warm. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said something I didn't deserve. He said, "Dad, Mom loved you. You know that, right?" I nodded. My throat felt tight. Then he said, "She used to defend you." I looked at him. He continued, "She would tell me, 'Your father loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it.'" Those words should have comforted me, but they didn't. They crushed me. Because Evelyn spent her life translating my silence into love, covering my absence with excuses so our son wouldn't hate me. And I realized I wasn't a bad man. I was just late, and being late can hurt people just as deeply as being cruel. Listen to me. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. Love is urgent, not toxic urgency, not desperation, but holy urgency. Because love is not just something you feel, it's something you do. It's a phone call, it's showing up, it's listening without multitasking, it's apologizing fast, it's hugging longer, it's putting the phone down and looking in their eyes. It's the small things that say, "You matter more than whatever I'm chasing." And if you don't do that, life will teach you the lesson in the most brutal way possible, through absence. I wish someone had taught me this earlier. I started doing it at 91, and it changed how I lived even in old age. Every morning, I asked myself one question. If this was the last day, who would I want to hear my voice? And then I would call them. Not text, call. Because you can't hug through a text. You can't feel someone's soul through a text. So I called. My son, my granddaughter, old friends I abandoned, even people I had fallen out with. Some didn't answer. Some had already moved on, but many did. And those calls brought life back into me. That's what you don't understand when you're young. You don't need more years to live a better life. You need more presence in the years you already have. At 94, my granddaughter asked me something. She climbed onto my lap and said, "Grandpa, were you always this nice?" I laughed, but inside, I felt a pain like a needle. Because she didn't know the other version of me. The version that Evelyn knew. The rushed version. The distracted version. The version that always had somewhere else to be. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "No, I learned late." And she said, "Late is okay, Grandpa." And I smiled, but I also thought, late is okay, only if you still have time. Here it is. The thing it took me 70 years to understand. The truth that will change your life if you let it. You don't regret what you did. You regret what you kept postponing. You don't regret the job you took. You regret the dinner you missed, the birthday you skipped, the apology you delayed, the love you assumed would wait. Because love doesn't always wait. People don't always wait. And time never waits. I'm 97 years old. I don't have decades. I have mornings. Maybe. And I'm telling you, don't live like you have endless tomorrows. If you love someone, say it now. If you miss someone, call now. If you need to apologize, do it now. If you want to change, start now. Don't make my mistake. Don't spend your youth building a future you can't enjoy because you destroyed the relationships that made it worth living. Remember this. One day, the person you love will be gone, and you will realize you would have traded every achievement for one more ordinary moment with them. So don't wait, don't say later, don't be late.